So you're here because of that dreaded check engine light, and your car is just not driving right. Well, you've come to the right place. In this explainer, we are going to pull back the curtain on error code P0717, so you know exactly what you're up against and, more importantly, how to fix it.
Yeah, that little glowing engine on your dash, it's never a good feeling, is it? It just pops on and immediately the questions start flying. But remember, that light is just a messenger. Today we're going to figure out exactly what message it's trying to send.
And if your code reader spit out P0717, then congratulations, you're one step closer to solving the mystery. That code points to a very specific problem. Input speed sensor A, circuit no signal. Okay, so what in the world does that actually mean for your car? Let's get into it.
To get you from confused to confident, here's our game plan. We'll start with what the code actually is. Then we'll look at the most common causes. After that, I'll walk you through a step-by-step guide to diagnose it. We'll also touch on what to do if it's a more complex issue. And finally, why you really shouldn't ignore this.
All right, first things first. Before we can even think about grabbing a wrench, we have to understand the message our car is sending with this code. What is it actually trying to tell us?
So here's the bottom line. Your car's main computer, whether that's the powertrain control module, the PCM, or the transmission control module, the TCM, has lost contact. It's supposed to be getting a constant update from a key sensor in your transmission, but right now, it's just getting radio silence. Here's a great way to think about it. This sensor is like a pulse monitor for your transmission. It tells the computer exactly how fast things are spinning inside. Without that pulse, the computer is flying blind. It has no clue when to shift gears, and that's when you start feeling all those weird driving issues.
Okay, now that we know what the code means, let's play detective and hunt down the most likely culprits. And here's some good news. More often than not, this code points to a few common and usually pretty manageable problems.
And just look at this breakdown. A whopping 70% of the time, the problem is simply the sensor itself or the wiring connected to it. That is fantastic news because it tells us exactly where to start our search instead of jumping to scary, expensive conclusions.
So, what are these usual suspects? Well, it could be that the sensor has just given up the ghost. Or it might be something as simple as a frayed wire, a corroded plug, or even a bad ground. And you know what? Never forget the basics. Low or dirty transmission fluid can absolutely cause this code to pop up. All right, enough theory. Let's get to the good part. We're going to walk through a logical, step-by-step process that starts with the easy stuff first. This way, you don't end up just throwing parts at the problem hoping something sticks.
We're going to work smart, not hard. So, step 1, check the fluid. It's the simplest thing you can do. If that's okay, step 2 is a good, hard look at all the wiring and connectors for anything that looks out of place. If all that checks out, then we'll move on to testing the circuit and finally, the sensor itself.
Now, to do some real testing, you're going to need a multimeter. First, check the circuit's power wire with the ignition on. You should be seeing around 5 volts. Next, you can test the sensor's internal resistance. A healthy sensor will change its resistance as it gets warmer. So if you're getting 0 volts or that resistance number is just stuck, well, bingo, you've almost certainly found your problem.
So, what happens if the fluid is good, the wiring looks perfect, and the sensor tests out just fine? Well, while it's definitely less common, sometimes the problem is hiding a little deeper inside the transmission. And this is where we have to be realistic. A sensor or a wiring problem, that's often something you can tackle in your own garage. But if the issue is with an internal part or the computer itself, that's usually when it's time to call in a professional mechanic.
Now don't let this list scare you. We're talking about things like a bad valve body, a failed shift solenoid, or even a problem with the transmission or powertrain computer. These are the rare possibilities, and they're usually the very last thing you'd suspect, especially if P0717 is the only code you're seeing.
And now, we've arrived at maybe the most important part of this whole conversation. Why is it so critical to fix this code quickly? What's the worst that can happen if you just let it go? You're probably already feeling some of this, right? The transmission might be shifting really hard or at all the wrong times. It might even refuse to shift at all and get stuck in one gear. That's what we call limp mode, and it's your car's way of protecting itself. And on top of all that, your gas mileage is probably taking a nosedive.
And this right here, this is the real wake-up call. Driving with this problem isn't just annoying, it's actively harming your transmission. All that improper shifting creates a ton of extra heat and wear, and it can turn a small, cheap sensor problem into a catastrophic and very expensive transmission failure.
So really, it all boils down to this one simple question. When you weigh the small cost of a new sensor against the absolutely massive cost of a new transmission, well, the answer's pretty obvious, isn't it? Fixing code P0717 isn't just about making your car drive better today. It's about saving yourself from a financial nightmare down the road.